Okay, so we know that the limit as x goes to infinity of 4 to the x is just what we get when we keep multiplying 4 over and over and over again. So that goes to infinity. And this limit of 1/2 to the x is just 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2, which keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller and goes to 0. So now we want to look at this in general. So if the limit as x goes to infinity of b to the x is equal to 0, what are the restrictions on b? So if I take a number times a number times a number times a number and keep going, and that product goes to 0, then what do we know about these numbers? These numbers must be in absolute value less than 1. Now, on the other hand, if taking that b times b times b times b over and over and over again goes to infinity, then that means that the number b has to be bigger than 1. So that same concepts that we just saw can get us to the formula for the sum of an infinite geometric series. So if the first term is a1 and the common ratio is r, so we haven't changed those, that's what those have been all along, we have the formula that s infinity is equal to the first term divided by 1 minus r. But there's a big important fact that's provided the absolute value of r is less than 1. If the absolute value of r is greater than or equal to 1, then the series has no sum. So this word, if it doesn't have a sum, it diverges. And if it does have a sum, it converges. And it will converge to this expression. So we have this formula for s infinity, a1 divided by 1 minus r, but we absolutely must make sure that the ratio is less than 1. Otherwise, there is no sum. It diverges. So if we look at this series right here, I look at this and I can see that the ratio is 0.8. So as soon as I see that it's infinite, it's geometric because it's exponential. It's in the exponential form. The ratio is in fact in absolute value less than 1, then I can use my formula s infinity. So s infinity is the first term divided by 1 minus r. So a1 is what I get when I plug in 1. So if I plug in 1, anything to the 0 power is 1, I get 5. So this sum is going to be 5 divided by 1 minus 0.8. So 5 divided by 0.2, 5 divided by 2/10. 2/10 is the same thing as a fifth. So 5 divided by a fifth is 5 times 5 over 1, or 25. So if I added up all these numbers, I would get 25. So now if I look at this, I can see that I have a series. So I have to look and determine, is it arithmetic or geometric? I can see that if I multiply by -3, I will get to the next number. So that means that it's geometric and the ratio is -3. So since it's ... that tells me that it's infinite. And I know that I have this formula, a1 over 1 minus r. However, I have to be careful that the absolute value of the ratio is less than 1. If it's not, then it does not apply. And so when I look here and I see that the ratio is -3, I can say that this series diverges, or that there is no sum. So just a quick recap, the sum of an infinite geometric series with first term a1 and ratio of r is given by this formula, provided you must make sure that the absolute value of r is less than 1. If it happens to be greater than or equal to 1, there's no sum. So this is when it converges, if the absolute value of r is less than 1, and it diverges otherwise.